sister's a therapist and I tell jokes. We both want to help all kinds of folks.
Hello, and welcome to My Sister's a Therapist. This is a podcast about two sisters. One of them is me. My name's Virginia Jones, and I'm a stand-up comedian. And one of them is another sister, my sister from another blister, Laura Ryan, LMFT.
I don't think we're the sister of another blister. We have the same dad.
The same blister.
Yeah, I'm a sister of the same blister. Yes, I'm Laura Ryan. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, but my main credit is sister to satirical scholar Virginia Jones.
On this show, we each pick a topic every other week, and the other person gets to be surprised. So Laura has no idea what I'm going to be talking about, and I have all the ideas because I chose it.
So what's our topic today?
Today, we are exploring the just world theory.
That the world is just?
Yes, that there is an inherent justice in the world. Watching people act as if because a person comes to this country, they deserve to be kidnapped or shot, or because a person wears a short skirt on a day, they deserve to be SA'd. It's hard to understand what it is about human nature that excuses this kind of behavior. Oh, well, they're not like us, so they get whatever.
What if we all wore short skirts? You thought about that?
The just world hypothesis is the idea that the world is just, and that means that people get what they deserve. Psychologist Fritz Heider in 1958 started to talk about attribution. If your dad gets cancer, but he smoked, well, if your mom died in a car accident, but she drank, well, this leads to this. This causes this.
If your mother has diabetes and she's fat, well,
there you go. People believe that others get what they deserve in order to satisfy a psychological need for order and safety. We want to believe that the world is fair. This belief acts as a defense mechanism, reducing anxiety about random suffering by assuming that bad events happen for a reason. I think we're raised into it. When you're a kid, good behavior gets you good treatment and bad behavior gets you bad treatment. You've internalized this idea that I can behave my way into a good life, but then something bad might happen to you and you think, I didn't deserve that. I'm a good person. I've lived a good life.
This came up in the grief episode. When somebody dies, everybody wants to immediately know how and why, especially if someone is young. When you open up the possibility that a quote unquote healthy young person died, then that means that any of us could die. And we need to know with certainty that it's not going to be us. We need to know what they did to get there.
I'm not going to smoke cigarettes, therefore I won't die of cancer. When a good friend of mine got a terrible terminal disease, I asked his wife, was it because he had cancer when he was young? She said, no, it's totally unrelated. It's just two terrible diseases that he happened to get.
I think it is human nature to want to have answers.
Yes. But the people who believe just world stuff, it is most especially people who believe in God, people who ascribe to authoritarianism, and people who are more admiring of social and political institutions. They're the law and order people. And this is who I see in my own life saying things like, well, they're illegal. And we've talked about this before. It is not a felony to immigrate illegally. It's a misdemeanor. But when you say illegal next to person or illegal next to alien, it gives you the idea that they're committing crimes. And there's this general, these are the worst criminals that's just kind of slopped on top to justify horrible behavior.
Also, controversial take. I don't think that it's just turbo Christians and Nazis who believe this. I think on some level, we all want to believe that there is justice and that things are right. And if things worked out that way, there was a reason for it. I think that's part of our human nature.
It does reduce your individual anxiety because if you think that a victim deserved their misfortune, that means a bad thing couldn't happen to me. You get a sense of control over your life. And it does come up in all philosophies, in all religions, reaping what you sow in Christianity and karma in Buddhism and Hinduism. Although we all misuse the idea of karma, karma does not happen within your generation.
When I put out bad energy, the story that I make up is that it comes back to me. If I act in ways that are evil and underhanded and crappy, at some point in my lifetime, it is going to come home to roost. I don't know if that's karma or if that's just the way things work.
If you are a person who behaves badly, who constantly tries to screw people over, is always trying to manipulate other people, it does come back to you, but it's your own doing because you won't have friends. You will lose friends, you will lose business associates, you will lose contact with your family. That's the downstream effect.
And if I stay in that kind of lifestyle, bad things are going to come because it's inevitable. I don't know if that's karma, but that's what I believe.
Started in 1958. In 1965, two guys, and of course they're white men, Edward E. Jones and Keith Davis, argue that the goal of attribution is to discover how behavior and intention reveal a person's nature. If good things happen to you, what is your nature that caused that? If bad things happen to you, what did you do to cause that? And it's, I think, an unconscious impulse.
How am I responsible for my plight?
In a study in 1965, students were told another student, someone just like them, who went to their school, who went to their class, purchased the right ticket and had won the lottery. And they asked questions about, what do you think that says about this person? The determining theory was the winner must have been a very good student and must have worked very hard in school.
Very lucky.
Right. But they got that luck, Laura, because they studied hard in their classes. Because when you're a student, that's the good behavior. That's the thing you are going to attribute everything to. You've seen that people who don't work very hard in school get kicked out of school. That's bad luck for them.
This is giving Animal Farm.
Yeah, Animal Farm is very relevant to our times today. The division and subdivision of people. This is our side and that's their side. And we're a little bit better because we do this. 100%. In 1971, we get the phrase victim blaming, coined by William J. Ryan. Somewhere in our Irish mutt lineage came up with the idea of victim blaming, that if something bad happened to you, you must have done something to deserve it.
Speaking of, I got in a fight today on Instagram with some guy who's fighting with me about the plot of Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, good.
At first I thought this was a joke.
It's funny.
Because why are you talking to me about Beauty and the Beast plot lines? Lil Swiper said, I think we're missing the point that the beast comes with property. And I think that's what this was about. And then the father was kidnapped and imprisoned for theft. I said, so you support the beast? That's a pretty weird take. And then this guy, Bryce Cook, 07, if you guys want to talk to him, I'm saying favorites are important and theft is a crime. A lord of a castle can punish. I said, Bryce, so you're saying that you are a royalist? Bryce said, and you're a victim blamer. And I said to Bryce, Maurice picked a rose in the garden. Does that mean he should be kidnapped and locked in a basement? Make it make sense. He said, well, in a time frame, breaking into a royal home would mean death. So he got off easy. And I said, and we're back to royalist propaganda. And he said, nothing royalist about it. Try the same thing in any home in a red state. If I pluck a rose out of someone's garden, I should expect to be imprisoned or murdered?
No, shot in the face. Yeah. Bryce is having a really fun time missing the point entirely. The punishment does not fit the crime. Stealing a loaf of bread to feed your hungry family is not a death sentence. That makes no sense. And it's extremely just world hypothesis, extremely red state, conservative coded. Well, he committed any crime.
He said that I was victim blaming because the beast kidnapped a man for taking a rose out of a garden. The beast is good because he's rich, and everyone else is bad because they're poor.
Bryce's point is that once Maurice does any crime, jaywalking,
breathing too hard on the subway,
parallel parking in the opposite direction, he deserves any punishment. Kidnapping is justified because he has done a crime. And that's very much in the just world hypothesis. Because he's done a crime, he's a criminal. That's all he is. If you've ever done sex work, you are a sex worker. That's all you are. You are reduced to this one thing.
Refer to our Obey episode.
If you are part of the just world hypothesis, then you say, well, the peaceful protesters must have done something to be shot in the face. You are finding reasons to criminalize people because that makes you feel better. I would never be a domestic terrorist. That's what Kristi Noem said. So I'm not going to get shot in the face.
It's that idea that I need certainty in my life. I need things to make sense. If we're pinning a man down and a lot of weird fake police officers are shooting him in his back when he didn't have a gun and he wasn't doing anything, that doesn't really make sense. So I'm going to have to do whatever I can to squeeze that into a yes, no, good, bad argument.
Alex Preddy went looking in his background, an unpaid parking ticket, because that is going to feed into the idea of his deservingness. Investigators, reporters, journalists, everyone they talked to said he was an incredibly selfless person. He worked trying to help veterans learn to walk at a hospital. They weren't able to find any darkness in his behavior. Now, Renee Good, she was a lesbian, so she gets what she gets.
And George Floyd had a criminal history. That means
that's the reason that got dug up to justify killing him in the middle of the street.
Because his crime was sitting on a car.
In 1980, Melvin Lerner brings all this stuff together in a paper called The Belief in a Just World of Fundamental Delusion. In 1981, he follows that up with another banger, The Justice Motive in Social Behavior, Adapting to Times of Scarcity and Change, which we are very much seeing now. As money gets tighter, as food prices and fuel prices go up, we are looking around to see what bad behavior people have done that we can justify taking resources from them.
We do this with people who are unhoused all the time. He's sleeping on the street. He must have done something.
It gets more absurd as we get closer and closer to the end of this capitalist wasteland. At this point, done something can be lost a job, did not work for 2 months, and then you're out.
Or got cancer or had a medical problem.
Had a child in rehab, got a bunch of medical bills, couldn't pay them, lost their house. We're also close to the line. And I think that when we're all close to the line, you think that it would make people kinder and more empathetic because we see there, but for the grace of God, et cetera. It actually makes people crueler. I've got mine. I need mine.
I need certainty.
Psychologist Dorothy Rowe commented on this, that the just world idea winds up increasing depression if you truly observe the world as it is and see who you perceive to be good people having terrible circumstances and terrible people having great things happen to them. Any behavior could end in disaster. Any bad thing you've ever done in your life, you keyed a car, you're going to get hit by a bus. You stole a pack of gum, you could go to the electric chair, especially if you are in a Judeo-Christian philosophy that does not include absolution. You have your whole life behind you trying to do the right thing in every situation in order to keep bad things from happening. And it becomes paranoia. In the short term, Just World is a great way to raise kids. It's simple. If you clean your room, you're going to get to go to McDonald's. If you put mommy's phone down the toilet, you're going to get grounded. Good behavior leads to good outcomes and bad behavior leads to bad outcomes. If you continue along this road, you will wind up blaming victims for their misfortune as a defense mechanism to keep yourself safe, to reduce your own anxiety.
Enter the beast.
Right. An earthquake happens in a faraway land and 5,000 people were killed. They all were bad people. There wasn't one good person that they knew.
They must have done something, because why else would it happen?
Another attractive thing about the Just World hypothesis is people do think that they deserve good things. I'm me, so I deserve good things, and they're them, so they deserve bad things. This is a helpful idea for me to try to find empathy from people who I think are behaving like animals.
Step one is realizing that you're doing it all the time too. I think it is part of the human condition to want clarity, to want to be able to say, well, this absolutely happened because of that. If I just don't do that, then I'm going to be fine. If I never go to Russia, I'm never going to see a picture of an olive and I'll be fine. Reference our NET episode that I obviously listen to a lot more than you. If you live in a city that has unhoused people, this can be just something that helps you get through your day, because if every time I see an unhoused person, my first impulse is, well, how can I help them? What can I do? But I got to get to work, so I'm not unhoused. It's crappy. I was talking to my friend about how I feel like I have no empathy now because 3 of my stops to my new office involve an interaction with an unhoused person. There's always a person at that light standing at the corner. Recently, I was driving to work. I saw a black dog laying on that area with no human around. And I thought, oh my God, is that dog okay? And I turned around and realized, no, that's not a dog. That's a human man wearing black. I rolled down the window to make sure he was breathing. He was. And then I just drove on. Right. I'm a great person.
Do you have the time in your life to call an ambulance, to get this person to the hospital, to find them resources? It's overpowering, the idea of the amount of work and mental load and stress and space that you would need to rehabilitate that individual. What I have always done is volunteer at bigger organizations. I can't do the whole thing myself.
And I think that's the issue in America, because it's all pull yourself up by your bootstraps, do it by yourself. Actually, don't ask the government for any kind of help and don't expect it, except when we're going to war. We'll put a lot of money into that, but we won't put money into anything else. The fact that that man is laying on the street in the morning on a Tuesday, that's a societal issue. It's not really an individual issue.
If it was an individual issue, it would have happened to one person. What bums me out is seeing an elderly person on the street. You've lived your life. You don't have any support system.
Yeah, because they were bad. They did something wrong.
The original Phrase pull yourself up by your bootstraps was a joke. In 1863, Bryant and Stratton's Counting House Bookkeeping, making fun of the idea that a person could lift themselves off of the ground by their own bootstraps. We misunderstand that phrase and use the misunderstood version constantly.
To justify our hot takes on things. When I go to my mother's retirement community, a beautifully resourced place where there's lots of people that help you. The food is really nice. The environment is really nice. And some of the people in there are not good people. If we're looking at worthy or not worthy, an elderly person on the street might be much more worthy to be there than some of these folks, but they had a different set of circumstance.
As we've talked about many times, the best predictor for wealth and business success is coming from a background of wealth. It's not being a morally good person.
I don't think that's correct.
You think that every individual born into America has the same chance of becoming a millionaire.
That's what I learned at school, so it must be true.
I was thinking about the sadness of the phrase, when my ship comes in. That only works if you've ordered a ship.
That only works if you have access to a ship.
If you have ordered goods, sent a ship to go get them, and that ship comes in and you can sell those goods, great. People say, I'm waiting till my ship comes in, who never had a ship.
I don't have any goods to sell. I don't even have 2 pennies to rub together. P.S. Thanks for getting rid of all the pennies, Donald Trump.
And this circles around a lot of themes that we've touched on. We attribute our own success to our hyper superiority, which is not accurate. If we have good lives, we attribute them to our good deeds and deservingness, which is not accurate. And when we see misfortune, we blame other people for bad deeds or bad thoughts or bad lives that led to that misfortune.
I think we do this a lot with celebrities. And why is his career messing up? Oh, it's because he did something bad.
Celebrities are interesting because when people get successful, we like to attribute to they're just very talented. They're just very hardworking. They were just born different, because that makes us feel we're not responsible for working hard or trying to get ahead. So they're just a different kind of person, but they're not. And the worst thing that happens to celebrities is people find out that they're just like us. They screw up their marriages. They screw up their lives. They screw up their children.
They fat shame people at donut counters.
All of it. I was thinking about a dead friend who was a very complicated person. And that's a good way of saying a-hole. He was funny and wanted to be famous for being funny, and definitely walked in the footsteps of some very troubled, dead, funny people in the past. It would have changed how we talked about him if he had become successful. Because he didn't become successful, we will just find excuses for sexual assault, verbal abuse, physical abuse. We'll find excuses for people if they are famous. And if they're not famous, they're just some jerk face. In case we were wondering, how is feminism going? Susan Sarandon was dropped by her agency for speaking out against Gaza and the killing of innocent people. When you don't have an agent, you can't do film or TV work. You don't have anybody to broker those deals, especially someone at her level. But Jonathan Majors is back in the biz. Jonathan Majors was a huge Marvel disaster story because he was cast as Kang. There was a whole storyline built up around him. He was going to have all these movies, Kang the Conqueror. But it came out that, in fact, he had beaten the girlfriend he had then and several girlfriends in the past. So he was just written out of the Marvel universe. It's the same path of redemption as other celebrities. He's not starting at Marvel. He's starting below that. He's going to be in a Ben Shapiro movie.
I think this is a pretty good explanation of the theory. Susan Sarandon is a bad person, and this Marvel guy is a good person.
Well, we know he's not a good person.
That's what you think.
Yeah.
Maybe the women were mean. Have you thought about that?
Maybe they didn't do what he wanted, and
maybe they even cheated on him.
Oh, yeah. And it's amazing when we are talking celebrity stories, the tininess of the negative aspect that we can justify. Well, one time she wasn't very nice to him in public.
Marilyn Monroe got fired from a job because she was late sometimes. That probably means that's why she died.
That's true. She died from being late. That's how she became the late Marilyn Monroe.
Wow. Hot takes and poor taste on this podcast.
That's how you get names like the Mistress of Mirth. Okay.
So, Virginia, what are your final thoughts on this topic of just desserts?
I think that it's a good thing to examine. And when you are being fed a news story or a TikTok or a thread Look at the language. Look at how it's being sold to you that we should dislike this person or like this person.
Or even this country. Iran has gotten a pretty bad rap these days.
They're just people trying to do stuff. They're not different than us. They're not inherently superior or inferior. The idea that we should divide and subdivide into countries, principalities, cities, religions, streets, races, it's a way to make us all fail. When you hear about other people's misfortune, examine your own desire to find out what they did to deserve it, because they might not have done anything. And when a celebrity dies that you don't know and you don't know anybody who knows, ask yourself why you want to know how they died. The answer is because you want to know if they deserved it or not. Laura, what are your final thoughts on just desserts?
My final thoughts are, I think it's really important to not let fear run your life. I think the more fearful you are, the more you're going to tend towards these sort of beliefs. The more fearful you are, the more you're going to look to an omniscient God to handle your problems, the more you're going to look to a conservative political group to handle your problems. You're looking for black and white answers because you're afraid. I would say let's try to elevate ourselves out of fear and not live in that place so much.
I think that's a great point, that when you're operating from this viewpoint, you are opening yourself up to victimization by political groups, YouTubers, religions. You are really opening up your brain and your life to some really toxic stuff.
You're exposing yourself to a world that's pretty unhealthy. The story that I make up about being a person is that despite what I just said about that unhoused guy on the street, we are here to help each other. It's really hard to help people when you start dividing us into hierarchies of worthy and unworthy. I saw a TikTok today where this woman has created a bus ride where she drives around and shows oligarchs' homes to people.
Wow.
And I feel like that's the energy we need to be bringing into this time. Jeff Bezos isn't more deserving of anything than me. If we're looking at his morals and his character, he's probably less deserving than me. I think it's inherently connected to capitalism. It's connected to the patriarchy. It's connected to this idea that we're all on different levels. The caste system. This person is like this because they did something to deserve it. It's wrong. And I think this is what we did to Native Americans, what we've done to BIPOC people of every stripe in this country. And I hate it. It's wrong.
If I look at people's responses to ICE agents kidnapping them or shooting them in the face, the people of Iran, the people of Gaza, and acting like they are less deserving than we are because of where they live, it comes across as very cruel and heartless. Framing it like they are just trying to find order in a disordered world helps me be at peace with it.
Another slice of this, at least for me, is that I am in an information overload. I get too overwhelmed when I hear too much about another social group or another person who's been harmed, because that's all we're getting fed all day long. I get into an overload and I just think, okay, I can't actually do any more of this.
You're flooded, which is how we are all feeling all the time. And that's part of the point of the current administration. They want to flood us with so much information and so much bad information that we feel incapacitated.
I tried really hard to listen to the Epstein Files details because I feel that every victim on the list needs to have her day in court on some level, and I want to give her that time. But when I'm hearing about a children's school being bombed in Iran, and then the details of a child being murdered and thrown off of a boat by our president, there gets to a point where I can't really do it anymore.
You have to say to yourself, well, what did that child do to deserve being thrown off a boat?
What did that infant do? Probably had a bad attitude.
I've met a lot of infants, and I think a lot of them have a really bad attitude.
You know what? That is accurate. That's also my lived experience. Maybe we should be throwing more infants off boats. I'm not sure.
I think we should lead with that. I think
it's going to be a crowd pleaser. That's a hot take that people can get behind. Our lives are so complicated. I remember you telling me a medieval person knew
the New York Times. A medieval serf would have gotten as much information in his whole lifetime as it is in one issue of the New York Times Sunday edition.
When we're talking about that versus me and every other American just in a fire hose of
Right.
intel all the time. It gets really overwhelming, and it's easier for me to quickly go, oh, well, that was probably a bad person. Oh, that was a good person. I don't know. I went on a spiral about Catherine O'Hara's death. I still don't know why she's dead, and I feel like I need to know why. She had an illness, but what was it?
She had a pulmonary embolism.
How did she get that?
She had had rectal cancer. So she had an embolism as a symptom of that.
Okay. My understanding was she was working and doing stuff, and then all of a sudden she wasn't alive anymore. I think we're always trying to keep ourselves safe. We're trying to make sense of things that are nonsensical, and we're trying to deal with this fire hose of information that's in our faces 24/7.
And on the scarcity tip, the whole vampire idea came out of a time of scarceness. People were eating human remains and made up a whole mythos to say, oh, well, it wasn't me. It was those vampires over there.
It wasn't me.
I would never eat dead people. It was those guys.
Refer to our Eat the Rich episode. Virginia, if people don't want to put a gun in their mouth tonight and they would rather laugh at a comedy show, where do you think they could find you?
I would frame it as if people want to see good things happening to a fundamentally bad person, you can find my comedy calendar at my website, which is www.badinia.com. Badinia is also my Instagram, where I promote local comedy events. Don't act like I don't hit the road. I'll be in Newburgh on April 26th.
Wow, she's really getting out there.
Laura, where can people find you on the internet should they wish to do so?
If they have decided that it's time for therapy after this episode, they can go to lauraryan.org. If they want to have some laughs with my incredibly creative AI TikTok, they can go to I am Laura Ryan. If they want to follow the podcast and have a fight with me on Instagram, they can go to My Sister's a Therapist. They can also find us on YouTube. They can find us on our own website, mysistersatherapist.com.
The beast doesn't need you to stick up for him.
He's got plenty.
And he's not going to give any of it to you.
He might give you the rose, but he will throw you in jail.
If you have a question for us, want to tell us something, or send us a picture that you drew, you can write us at hello@mysistersatherapist.com. If you'd like to hire us to promote Mini Cooper's vegan sunscreen or irregular foods or illegal foods, you can...
It's illegal foods, so we're trying to get out there.
Illegal foods are like irregular foods, but they come in the dead of night. You get one knock on your door and then the person is gone.
And they have kind of an Italian accent when you're booking it. How much pastrami?
How
you
much
think we could get in here?
How much prosciutto?
Prosciutto. Fettuccine Alfredo. Do you want to get that, huh? If you're Italian, I apologize.
We're very sorry. We are technically 1/16 Italian, so maybe it's our birthright.
It's not racist if we're 1/16 Italian.
You can write us at hireus@mysistersatherapist.com. Laura, we do encourage everyone to write us reviews on any platform that they listen to the show on, including YouTube. But now is the time where you sometimes share a review or an email or just a nice note someone sent you. Do you have something this week?
Yes, it's not really a note that someone sent me. It's more of a note that someone sent the show. So we have a review from YouTube from at 12:12 a.m. girl. And she said, I am literally on the edge of my seat the entire show. Grey Gardens is the type of story that just stays with you. You ladies did an amazing job of dissecting it. I could have listened to this episode continue for days. Honestly, 12:12 a.m. girl, we could have made it last for days, but Virginia told me I had to stop talking.
Thank you for loving Grey Gardens, and thank you for loving the episode.
Thank you for supporting our podcast. By the way, 12:12 a.m. girl, or any person who happens to be listening, find a friend, find a stranger, find a guy who looks like a dog that's asleep on the road, and tell him about our podcast.
I was hoping that we would cut that out. You keep referring to it.
I want everyone to know what a horrible person I am. Also, if you like this episode, please subscribe, please follow our show. It helps us to get to more people so that we can eventually take over the world.
And as we take over the world, let's pause and reflect on the words of our emotional founder, Billy Ray Valentine, Capricorn. As he said, we can make it, baby.
Me and you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.